Welcome everyone to today's daily macro update for Monday, October 6th. Taking a look at the macro data today, there wasn't any because the government shutdown is on day 4. And, typically they last a week. We'll see what happens from here. We haven't really had too many developments or progress on that, but it doesn't really matter though because the stock market as well as other risk assets are enjoying this, lack of data. And we're just continuing to get more sentiment from the market that a soft landing is more than likely than a hard landing, right? Anything can change, but that's part of the reason why we keep on having this melt up in the market here. And so taking a look at this headline today, everything is up. AMD having a huge rise on a partnership with OpenAI, the same company that created ChatGPT. If we take a look at that, had a massive acceleration today. It started to get back to neutral trend from bearish on October 1st. So that was a positive rate of change. Obviously, it's back to bullish now, but yeah, pretty large acceleration, about a 38% rally. It's come down a little bit from that. So, I mean, for people who are in it beforehand, great time to sell some on the open. And yeah, so I mean, pretty big announcement from AMD. And, it's been consolidating pretty much since, it went bearish trend at the beginning of September. Then it got back to, or it started just to go sideways and then bam. So sometimes it happens like that. But what's interesting is that taking a look at the US dollar, that is remaining pretty resilient here, right? So it's not continuing to go down, while at the same time, bond yields also continue to rise. As you guys know, I like to pay attention to the break-even inflation rates as well as the U.S. government bond yields to see, what the bond market is pricing in. And so, you're having a pretty decent acceleration in the 5-year break-even inflation rate, and that's pretty much, going sideways. If we wanted to see a major improvement on inflation expectations to come downward, although, our team thinks, and I've stated this even last night in the Sunday macro wrap-up, that inflation is more likely to come down in the later part of this year in November and December, and then into 2026. And so, if you start to see that alongside of growth remaining, relatively stable, that's kind of what the market is trying to price in the future here. So, we're seeing a lot of that. The 10-year U.S. government bond yield is back at the top end of the trading range, along with the dollar as well. So yields up, dollar up, even though those are, more oppositely correlated to the S&P, you're still getting a large acceleration in even equity markets, right? So when we take a look at the Qs, that's on track to set a new all-time high here with the market closing in about 10 minutes rather. And then the S&P 500, that also had a decent rise. It's been pretty much making all-time highs over the past, 4 trading days. 4 trading days. So, it seems like this melt up is just going to continue happening with this government shutdown. So, what to do with all this information? I mean, hopefully you've been long this because there's been plenty of chances over the last, 5 months to be, in this market and participating in it. It is surprising though how retail sentiment has remained neutral to bearish, even though the market has been making new all-time highs every single month. So that is pretty interesting, but it's good for people like you and I who are in the market and can take advantage of this melt up that's going on. And the fact that you see retail sentiment not at bullish extremes really tells you that this could have a lot more legs to it. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we still have to implement our trading process. And so when things are at new all-time highs, there technically isn't a better time to take some off the table. And we say that, right? You're selling some, you're being incremental, you're not just binary where, you sell your entire position and then, you miss out if it keeps on going up, right? That's part of the reason we utilize our process is because we want to make sure that we're, just trimming some off the top if it has a big day. And then when it starts to come down a little bit or have a red day, right, because things don't go up in a straight line, then you just re-add those profits if it has a little bit of a dip there. And so, that if you've been doing that all the way up, I mean, you've been mitigating risk, you've been compounding your position. That's the way to do it. Tesla among the top Mag 7 stocks is the better performer today at 5%. Had a buying opportunity on Friday at the low end of the trading range. If we pop up the ranges that our team likes to use on TradingView, so you did get it not completely down, but pretty close. And so if you were buying that at the low end of the trading range, you are getting rewarded today. Microsoft as well as Google, both having big days themselves. Over 2%, Microsoft having a bigger day. And, last week we were noticing, this trend shift in Microsoft. It did go bearish very briefly and then went back to neutral on September 12th. And then it kind of went sideways. And then it started to go back up on accelerating volume and did go bullish trend before this candle here today. We could see it continue going forward. Things that are down the most, you have NVIDIA, which still bullish trend, which you could have this at the low end of the trading range soon. Still have a little bit of ways to go though. Broadcom, Apple, not they're having a little bit of red day, but they're still not close to the low end of the trade to the low end of the trading range just yet. JP Morgan, another one as well that's on the list, was buying some of that. So yeah, Mag 7 stocks still remain in bullish trend for the most part. I think the only one that's not bullish trend is Meta as well as Amazon. Walmart could have another acceleration here, and then Berkshire as well. So covering the mega caps there. Gold, man. Or actually, let's go with let's start with commodities here. Palladium making the biggest move here. That around September, between September 17th and the 19th. And then it's been going up continuously from there. The ETF that my team and I like to use is PALL. And then let's see what else. Uranium, gold junior miners, shippers. Shippers having a nice bounce here. Yeah, gold miners continue, silver miners. Yeah, and then gold just continues ripping higher, I mean, every time this thing has a red day, it's been a buy, and you had a decent one last week on October 2nd. And yeah, ever since that had a decent drop there, it's already up nearly 4%. So yeah, gold doing this huge breakout, by the way, is definitely a major, macro signal. You're seeing a lot of people start to get not so much like worried about recession, but worried about their dollar debasement. And so, people are looking for hard currency, safer assets because they see the devaluation that's going on right now. So gold, silver, platinum, all those base metals, they continue to do well. We were talking about that last week. The worst performers, wood, steel, copper having a little bit of a correction, but that remains in bullish trend as well. Crypto assets, man, Bitcoin miners. This thing has just been on a historical bull market ever since the bottom back at the end of April there. And yeah, I mean, we were buying this around mid-May, and ever since that day there, it's up over 228%. This is definitely one of the bigger performers in my portfolio. So Bitcoin miners, man, it's crazy to see how this bull market has been turning out. But yeah, right now it's at the top end of the trading range, so this is a great time to sell some. But yeah, definitely don't want to FOMO in with it, accelerating like this. So if you missed buying the dip on Bitcoin miners back at the end of September there, then you just got to wait for the next opportunity, right? Ethereum, Solana, AVAX all still remain in bullish trends. Let's see here. BLOK, another ETF that's good. MicroStrategy having a bit of a pop, but that one remains in bearish trend. Bitcoin new all-time highs. This had a crazy reacceleration from the lows that we saw back about a week ago or a couple weeks ago. From the end of September, it kind of right into the quarter close there. Right after the quarter close, it just had a huge acceleration. So Bitcoin, we went bullish on it. I think it was on Thursday or it might have been Wednesday of last week. You'll have to go through the videos to see, but yeah, it went bullish pretty quickly after that. And then so far, let's see, it's up an additional 5% since then. Similar to gold, you don't want to be chasing this thing right at the top end of the trading range. If you missed out on, adding back, then just don't chase, right? So, and I'll just be completely transparent. I was not buying it back here or re-adding to it, but I'm just going to wait until it provides another opportunity at the lower of the trading range on lower volume. And yeah, pretty much from there, that's all I see. We can take a look at what's been doing the best in Asian markets. Looks like Vietnam, biggest performer today, along with Japan. So Japan and Vietnam, two of the better ones. Europe, Norway, as well as Switzerland. So Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, Netherlands, a lot of those Nordic countries, ETFs, those are the best performers right now. Man, take a look at Netherlands. Sheesh. Just since the beginning of September, it's up nearly 16%. So the Nordic countries have been performing pretty well. And then South America hasn't really been too good. Yeah, so Colombia, Peru actually has been doing really well. A lot of these emerging markets have been just continuing to crush it. The one that we were looking at just last night was Mexico. So Mexico is also in bullish trend, and this is pretty much at the low of the trading range. So there's about a minute left in the market there, but EWW is the Mexico ETF. So that's providing a bit of an opportunity there. But that's pretty much running through everything. Let's see. Yield curve continues to steepen from here. Pretty interesting the way that it's been, since the end of April there. It's for the most part been steepening. So that's when, or it's pretty much been bull steepening, which is when the 2-year yield is dropping faster, or the short end of the curve is dropping faster than the long end, which is signaling Fed cutting while inflation or growth remains sticky. Could be right now with the bond market, as well as the stock market, with what it's suggesting, we could be seeing, more of that Goldilocks type of environment being priced in right now. Which, for those who don't know what Goldilocks is in finance, it's a market scenario that's just right? Just like how the old fairy tale with the soup, right? The soup is just right, and the market's really enjoying that signal from the bond market, and we'll see what happens from here. I mean, nothing can really tell it otherwise, because we're just not getting any hard data since the government shutdown is continuing. Taking a look at some trends here. Gold, biggest trend. Small cap stocks, second bullish trend. And then we have emerging markets, S&P 500. Bitcoin had a huge acceleration, obviously. So that's catching up in fifth place. And then interesting seeing the dollar becoming a little bit resilient along with commodities. So we really want to pay attention to see what the dollar is going to do from here. But and then you're continuously seeing oil in a bearish trend. So those are looking at the trend indicators there. But we'll go ahead. Actually, before that, there's still over a 94% chance of a cut during the October 29th Fed meeting. And for the October print for CPI, that's set to come in a little bit lower than what is being priced in for the September inflation report. So we'll see if we even get those next week due to the government shutdown. Yeah, so inflation for the month of September to be reported this month is set to be reported on Wednesday morning at 8:30 a.m., but we'll see what happens. All these government releases are tentative because of the shutdown, and so we just have to rely on private data for the time being. But let's go ahead and see what you guys have to say with all the questions. How's everyone doing on this fantastic Monday? Gators won their big game on Saturday. I was up there in Gainesville with my father and some buddies, and it was a great time. I don't know anyone who watched college football, but who knows? The Gators have been bearish, but I think they're back to neutral now. We'll see if they go to bullish trend. Dollar up, gold up. Yeah, kind of a weird scenario, but yeah, I think if the dollar continues to go higher from here, it has to break through and close above that 98.5 level, which we're not seeing just yet. When is the bull run? The bull run has been happening for 4 months. So if you're someone who's asking when is the bull run going to happen, it's been happening for a long time. What's driving developing markets? What's driving developing markets performance? Just a shift in capital as well into these emerging markets because some people might be looking at United States and seeing it's overvalued compared to what emerging markets are. But you also have global central banks being very stimulative. There's just a lot of money being flooded right now. And what's interesting is that because it's mainly led fiscally, well, in the United States it is right now, the Fed doesn't really have to go back to QE, which is pretty interesting. The government can just continue printing. All right, let's go over to the questions or the comments from, let's see, from YouTube here. Ricardo. Build-A-Bear Workshop. Yeah, I mean this is a pretty volatile stock, but no, I mean this breaking like this on higher volume, it's something that I'm probably not going to entertain just yet. But yeah, I mean it's a pretty small stock, $788 million market cap. I typically don't even buy single stocks unless they're 10 billion or above. So this doesn't even fall into the wheelhouse that I would even do. But no, it doesn't look great to me. Would we be able to look at natural gas ranges, please? Sure, I can bring that up. Good question by our member, Matthew Wright. Welcome, sir. Let me just bring up UNG. Yeah, and so right now it's close to the top end of the trading range. It did close. It did close higher on October 1st. So we'll see what happens from here, but it's technically closer to the low end of the trading, or closer to the top end of the trading range rather. Is EWW near the low end of the trading range? Yes, it is. If Bitcoin is in a bullish, why is MicroStrategy in bearish? Seems odd. Yeah, I mean, they're two separate things. So you have to realize that MicroStrategy is basically like a leveraged Bitcoin position. And it doesn't have to be all the time where Bitcoin is up and MicroStrategy is also up. So, yeah, you got to remember it's two separate things. What is your opinion on gold in the next month? I mean, not sure what it's going to do, but in our model, it remains a bullish trend. So, natural gas, we just had it up here. I would put this more in a neutral trend. It needs to do a little bit more work. Like I'd like to see it close above, $14, but we'll see what happens. Had a nice move today though. All right, let's go over to TikTok here. Let's see what you guys have to say. I'm just scrolling through. Let's see here. Topping tail, spy still intact. No, we don't call tops here, young Mamba. I mean, there's no reason to do that. And if you're going to go short on the S&P 500, you're just going to get smacked around. This is, I think it was like a couple weeks ago where somebody was saying the exact same thing about going short the SPY. Um, and it's going to continue higher, and so you could have a large risk of getting squeezed. So the rule of thumb that my team and I have, and just so that you guys know, is that if something is in a bullish trend, you don't short it. Don't try and be a hero and call tops. Um, that's not really how you make money. And in the long term over time, yeah, it might be cool to short and maybe you get lucky and you do get a top, and you can post it on your Twitter and tell your friends. But you know, doing that, what we're trying to do here is do repeat actions so that over the long run, we're continuously risk managing our capital while capturing a lot of these bullish trends. And so yeah, those are my thoughts. Don't short bullish trends. Oil, yes, is bearish. I appreciate the likes though. How would you scale out of a position? Um, well, the only reason why I would scale out of a position is if it went from bullish trend to neutral trend, right? Typically, when that happens, I would take it to a minimum, right? And then I would just wait and watch to see if it either reclaims its bullish trend or it goes bearish. From what we've seen with our model, when things go from bullish to neutral, there's a much higher chance of it going bearish than it going back to bullish, although it does happen, just like we saw with Bitcoin. So, um, you know, in terms of, positioning out of things, if I'm at a minimum with something that's in a neutral trend and then it drops again and goes bearish, then you just cut it, get rid of it. So XRP currently, yeah, XRP is still remaining in a bearish trend. So, if it gets above this $3.10 and closes above it, then that's what I would want to see. But it's still struggling in my view. Yeah, the volume just like isn't there. But it could, who knows? Appreciate the likes. Helps out the algorithm. How about China and emerging markets? China currently, let's see. Did I touch on China when we were talking about it? I think we were just talking about Vietnam. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the ETF GXC, China remains squarely in a bullish trend. Is this because of money printing? Well, it's money printing on the fiscal side, right? So when you have fiscal monetary policy printing, you have the government right now So Scott Bessent and Trump, they're issuing treasury bonds at the low end of the yield curve. So short dated treasuries, and they're using that to not only fund a lot of the government right now, but also too, they are using that to buy back some older or longer term debt. And so they're buying back their own debt, which is pretty interesting, but it's very stimulative in terms of what that does. And so it's very stimulative in the short term, but if rates don't continue to come down and that would increase rollover risk with a lot of the short-term debt that they're issuing because some of them, they only mature in a few weeks, right? So, but with the Fed clearly signaling that the rate cutting regime will continue, the market is seeing that as a huge green flag, because the plan by the Trump administration as well as Scott Bessent could end up, actually working. And when I say working, I would use air quotes because when doing that, you are continuously devaluing the US dollar, which is why things like Bitcoin and gold, which are hard currencies, continue to do well, right? Alibaba, yep, bullish trend. Opinions on alt season. When taking a look at altcoin dominance, that's been, falling. Really, it's been a large acceleration in Bitcoin dominance recently, and so we might be going back to Bitcoin season. If we look at DeFi dominance, that's in a little bit of a better trend, but yeah, I mean, if I think it's just going to continue with DeFi coins doing well as well as Bitcoin. All right. Getting a lot of good questions here. I probably won't be able to answer all of them, so apologies. That's why we also have our community. So all the great questions that you guys have, we answer them in the community there. I do have to get off at 4:15, which is in about a minute. So let me just scroll through and see what the best comment is. Will the Fed cut rates with rates rising? Yeah, that's what it looks like it. But I mean, rates have been in a bearish trend though, or the 10-year bond yield, 2-year bond yield, they still remain in a bearish trend. So even though they've been rising over the past couple days, the broader trend is that they're coming down. Which platform is good for options trading? I don't like Robinhood. Well, I mean, it depends on if you live in the United States or if you're abroad, what you have access to. So can't really answer that question unless, I kind of know that information. But, you know, that 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 platform question, just go on Google and figure out what works best given your geographical location. Why are bond yields rising? Well, the 10-year bond yield could be rising because of growth also having a rebound. So yeah, we could be seeing that. But I think inflation is going to remain above their 2% target for a really long time. This whole thing that they're having with their expectations on their most latest summary of economic projections report, them saying 2% in 2 years, I don't think it's going to happen unless we have like some type of major, weakness in the economy, which could happen. But 2 years ago in 2023, they had their target at 2% for 2025. So they're just pushing. They keep on pushing that 2-year mark out for inflation to be back at 2%. So yeah. All right. Well, With that, we're going to go ahead and close it off there. I know that there were some questions I wasn't able to get to. If you guys want to join our macro optics community and ask those questions in there, there's a 7-day free trial. Just go to our website, or you can just on our socials, whether that's on Instagram or TikTok, just DM me the word macro, and I'll go ahead and I'll send you a link so that you get the 7-day free trial. But I appreciate everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in tomorrow's daily macro update. Bye, everyone.